We start with the other big deal hanging in the balance. President Trump and President Xi getting ready to go head-to-head at the G20 meeting to try and find some common ground amid escalating trade tensions. This as contradicting headlines giving investors whiplash again today. Let's get straight to Eamon Javers, who's in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for the developing story. Eamon.
Yeah, hi, Melissa. It's a bit of a game of deal or no deal here in Buenos Aires as well. As we wait for President Trump to land here in Air Force One in just a couple of hours' time, a lot of uncertainty hanging over the diplomats and heads of state who have gathered here in Argentina for this economic summit. Let's look at some of the elements of uncertainty, particularly with auto tariffs. The administration raising the possibility, the president in a tweet, of new tariffs on European automakers. Also the possibility here of tariffs on Chinese autos from Robert Lighthizer, the top trade official for this administration, raising that in a statement last night. There's the idea of a tariff truce. That's something that experts have looked at as the possibility of a step back from a major trade deal. Could they, at least the United States and China, get a tariff truce in which they agree to call off the escalating tariffs and agree to negotiate into next year on a larger deal? And then the other issue that we're going to see is the signing of this new trade deal between the United States, Canada, and Mexico tomorrow. But will the administration be able to get that over the bar on Capitol Hill? We're going to watch for reaction in Washington to that signing tomorrow and see how that's playing politically for the president. So a lot at stake here, and a couple of scheduling change-ups here at the last minute. The president announcing over Twitter while in the air on Air Force One today that he's canceled his meeting with Vladimir Putin. They're rearranging some other meetings as well, downgrading some from formal sit-downs to just what they call hallway grabs between the two leaders. They're ultimately going to lower the number of meetings that the president has, but he is still going to have that dinner with Xi Jinping on Saturday night, and that's the one that everybody's looking forward to, Melissa, because so much at stake here in Argentina.
And key for maybe a lot of the conspiracy theorists out there, Eamon, is that Peter Navarro, the trade hawk, will be present at the dinner. He'll be sitting at the dinner table, right?
That's right. A White House official confirmed that to me today. That is a little bit unexpected because Peter Navarro is seen as the biggest hawk on China in this administration. The Chinese view him as somebody who's working against them inside this administration. So is that a signal that no deal is in the offing here? Or is that a signal that the president simply wants all of his players to be at the table when he does come to some kind of negotiation with Xi Jinping? Not really certain how to read that, but a lot of people are paying attention to it today.
All right, Eamon, thank you. Eamon Javers in Buenos Aires for us. So we start with Guy Adami, and I ask you,
hi, Mel.
Deal or no deal when it comes to trade? When it comes to trade, and what could that mean for the market?
Pandering to our guest, Howie Mandel, sitting in the wings.
This is the question of the market.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question. You probably won't like the way I answer, which is typical of our relationship.
Yes.
But I'll say this. I think they'll come out of it with a handshake, and President Trump will say we have an agreement to move forward and we're great friends, and I think that will be enough to make the market go higher. I think President Trump is extraordinarily focused on the stock market. I think he knows in his heart that'll probably make the Dow go up anywhere from 500 to 750 points, and that's probably enough for the next couple of weeks as we get into the holidays. That doesn't mean there will be a deal, quite frankly, because I don't think the Chinese want to make a deal, but I think that language will be enough to make the market rally.
So just a handshake. And what? The 10% tariffs don't go to 25% Jan 1?
Is it going to be like an uncomfortably long handshake?
Like a bro hug?
As they typically are. Most handshakes are uncomfortable.
More importantly than the quality of the handshake or the length of the duration or the hug or whatever may follow.
It's what we do these days.
Is 10% tariffs that are in place go up to 25%?
I don't believe
Those are halted.
I think it'll
halted.
be status quo. We had a great conversation. We're agreed to move forward. We both understand each other. All the things you've heard him say before.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I don't think we get that. And I think putting the guy that wrote the book Death by China at the same table of the negotiators, Peter Navarro, is not well liked. And I think there's a message there, frankly. I think both sides are going into this with at least renewed expectations about the other side. I think both guys, the art of the deal, China has been surprised that Trump hasn't been the deal maker that they thought he was going to be, and I think Trump is actually going to stick in that mode. I don't think we have to have a deal. I will go down saying I think the Fed is more important right now to the markets than trade, even though, yes, we know that trade is having an impact on how companies are planning their business.
Doesn't the Fed give him a little bit of cover to come away without a deal and to actually be tough on trade and play to his base at this point?
Yes, I think all that is true. That gives him some room. I think that Peter Navarro being there actually, I think, might give him some room also in that you don't start the rhetoric that he has had over the last few days if you have no intention of having a deal, right? And we'll find out very shortly, January 1, right, whether there is, in fact, any. I think Guy's right. They'll come out with some sort of handshake and, continue productive discussions on the fine points, which I don't think we'll get any granular detail. But we'll really find out January 1st, do they, in fact, have any constructive dialogue continuing, or are we going to play hardball and implement the tariff increases?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that we're just talking about this one aspect of our trade relationship with China, and it really is about whether we're going to go from a 10% tariff to 25% in January. That's one component of it. The larger component is this technology transfer, the IP theft, all these things that have actually been in place for decades that are really bipartisan issues here in America. That both sides want to get these things fixed. There will be no deal on that anytime soon, which is why it's important that this thing doesn't escalate on a tit-for-tat trade war on just focused on the trade deficit, right? And so the way I see it is this. I think that both of these guys, President Xi and President Trump, do not want to go away from this and not have something to go back and say that we made some progress here. And I don't think it really plays to his base, President Trump, to be overly tough about this. I think the GM news this week showed us that it actually has the potential to work very badly against his base, in particular in places like Ohio, where they're shutting down factories. So to me, I think they do have to come away with some sort of a truce.
I think GM's a sideshow, though. I mean, I think
really?
The bottom line is, well, yeah, because I think trade tariffs and picking fights with the rest of the world on tariffs when really the fight was to be with China is something that's what's backfired in my view. We have been split up, Dan, so let's make this good. Bottom line, I think that this deal has a major challenge in happening. I agree with what you're saying, Dan, that this is not about trade neutrality. This is really about control of the 21st century. Therefore, what can each side come back with other than to say, I won? And I'm not sure how you do that for a
Twitter bluster is really no way to go about making the first win in this thing. You know what I mean? So I really do think that if they can come away, I've heard some people on the networks today, maybe the Chinese say we're going to buy some more soybeans and we're going to delay, the increase in the tariffs or whatever the heck it is. Like that would work well for both sides, right? And then you go and you get rid of guys like Navarro. He just can't be at the table anymore, all right? And then you really have to approach this in a manner where we're thinking about the next 10 years, right? And we're thinking about how to fix the last 20 or 30 years problems as it relates to trade.
So what are you saying, though, in terms of there's two different things going on. There's the rhetoric that they come out with and what that does for the market, which is maybe totally separate from what you're talking about.
I think that you guys have all said it. I think there's a really good chance that he comes away like when he left Singapore after meeting President Kim of North Korea, where they think they have some sort of framework to move forward on something, but they really didn't have anything. But at least de-escalated all of the major issues. And I think that's probably what we come out of on Monday.
Think about the trajectory that we're on in terms of trade with China. It continues to get worse, not better. In other words, each time there's escalation. We're actually moving up some stairway to, not heaven. So I think you've got a dynamic here where...
How is there continued escalation after the initial round of tariffs were put in place?
Well, I think China, first of all, well, I'll tell you what.
No other concrete examples. I mean, the administration's officials and China, they are talking ahead of the G20 meeting, right? They have been in conversation. And so isn't it just sort of, it's just been there. There's been no progress, but there hasn't necessarily been an escalation either.
Well, from where we started in March to where we are today on the eve of going to 25%, okay. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying, China, the tactic that Xi Jinping has played with U.S. corporates is to try to engage them, say, we want you there. He's tried to befriend American corporations. And in fact, that's another way this could get a lot worse. China hasn't really put the screws to American corporations yet. And I think that's something that they could do if they want to.
Yeah, but again, and I agree with everything everybody said, but again, it comes down to what happens and then what happens to the market reaction on Monday. And I think, listen, I'm as negative as anybody in terms of what it could mean if there's no deal. And I don't think the Chinese are really want to make a deal.
You're not more negative than Dan. Hold on.
No, Dan's not. No,
I think I'm being pragmatic here, Tim.
Dan's pragmatic.
You want to double this up?
Pragmatic.
Should we double this
Good
up?
word.
Dan knows a lot, doesn't he?
And as Regis Philbin has often said, Dan knows a lot. But I also think that, again, a handshake, the optics of it will be enough to make the market rally. I think I don't think they're going to come away saying there's no room for us to talk. Everybody's getting into their corner. World War I trench warfare. I don't think that's happening on Monday.
This is really important because you kind of poo-pooed the whole GM thing. It's not a sideshow. It's really important. I think as we get into 2019 and we start to see the
relative to China.
relative to, let's think about this. GM told us this summer that the steel tariffs were going to impact their business. They already told us that, okay?
$1 billion.
And so they waited till the midterms. They made this announcement there. They knew they were going to get blowback from the president here. They met with Kudlow this week. They still have to do this. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders. It's a company that went bankrupt 10 years ago. They're this is a necessary thing. We're going to start seeing this, I think, probably every week in the early 2019 if the tariffs maintain where they are or they go higher.
So you think that it's the tariffs that caused GM to announce these layoffs?
Listen, I spent the last 2 days
$1 billion in costs
at Credit Suisse's technology conference with all these major CFOs, CEOs of publicly traded companies. Every single conversation spent about 20% of the time talking about the trade situation. The only companies that seem to not care about them are the ones that have these massive secular shifts, like the ones that we've seen go crazy this week, like the Salesforce, the SaaS guys.
The GM story to me is about a company that no longer that sees actually very clearly that a core business in the sedan business, for example, is worth scrapping.
They don't
anymore. They don't make money.
That's the problem.
They sell pickup trucks. They want to realign their business. That to me is what's going on. I think
one thing that's going on.
Are you saying
GM had record profits? I mean,
let me just ask that. Do you think it gives them cover to do this kind of to close plants and others will follow? Is that the point of what you're saying?
Here's the thing. I just listened to 20 semiconductor companies that sell into industrial space. They sell into autos. They're telling you they have no visibility because these other businesses are being massively impacted by this right now. So it is important. So you can say that GM had record profits. They've been shutting down plants for years now. They've been firing people for years now.